This year's Lee Bennett Hopkins Poetry Award-winning poet received the Michael L. Prince Award for Keisha's House in 2004. In 2007, her book, The Braid, was a Lee Bennett Hopkins honor winner. In 2008, she served on the Lee Bennett Hopkins jury. And this year, Helen Frost has won the 2009 Lee Bennett Hopkins Poetry Award for Diamond Willow. Of Diamond Willow, one Hopkins judge said, "Frost's use of diamond shapes and bold-faced print reveal Willow's thoughts on several levels, and it's pure genius. This work has universal appeal and will be read for generations." It's my honor today to present to Helen Frost the Lee Bennett Hopkins Poetry Award for Children for 2009 with a check from Mr. Hopkins and a very handsome plaque.
I'm overwhelmed. This is so beautiful. When I won the honor award, I was given a clock, and the clock has a little battery in it, and it's similar to the plaque. I'm kind of picturing them in my studies, sitting next to each other. It's very, very sweet and moving. First, thank you, Pennsylvania, for your warm welcome. As I flew in, I was really intrigued by the landscape, and then my friend Gretchen Liuzzi, we're old friends from college days, drove me from Philadelphia up to receive the award, and I was again struck by the beauty of the landscape. Then when I came in, I was looking, I always like to find my way around someplace when I first get here, so I was looking around with that look like, okay, where does that hallway go and where do these steps go? And I met Dot. I'm not sure where Dot is, if she's here today, but she's the treasurer, and she was sitting on a corner. Dot, yeah, wave your hand or something. There's Dot, way back in the corner. But she was sitting there and she said, "You look like you're reconnoitering." Well, that was a word that my father always used when we were kids. I'm one of 10 children. We'd be out camping or something, and he'd say, "Oh, let's just get out and reconnoiter a little bit." So just the word reconnoiter made me feel right at home and welcome somehow. So it's been a very welcoming couple of days while I've been here. So thank you for that. Thank you just for the deep honor of this award on 2 counts. One, just I really appreciate the recognition of the importance of poetry for children. That's one thing that Lee is doing. And then the second thing is to honor an individual poet. And to be that poet is, as I think as Patricia said, humbling. And it's amazing to me that I was selected both in, for the Braid as an honor and this year to actually win the award. So I thank Lee Bennett Hopkins for endowing the award, Stephen Herb and Carolyn Wermuth for administering it. From being a judge last year, I know how much work they do. The judges have already been named, but I want to thank Karla Schmit, Jamie Adolph, Cheryl Friedenberg, Eileen Kern, and Michael Leonard for lots of careful reading and what must have been incredibly difficult judging. I read enough children's poetry that I knew my chances of winning this were slim because there were so many good books last year. I congratulate Patricia McKissick and Margarita Engel for sharing this year's honor, and I want to say that the honor that I feel is magnified by the list of the people who have won both this year in the other honor books and in previous years. I think I'll pause here and read 3 of the poems, and I believe that those are in the slideshow. Oh yeah, I'll talk about the form. The title, Diamond Willow, is taken from these willow sticks that you see behind here. It's a kind of tree. It's not a species of willow. It's like a type, something that happens to a particular shrub willow, where a branch is injured or there's a fungus or something, a branch falls away, and then where the branch was, this diamond shape forms around it. So when you see the one on the left shows what it looks like when you see it out in the wild with it's covered with lichen and bark, and it takes a discerning eye to see that it will be beautiful. And then, as you see on the other sticks, these diamond shapes have a sort of a dark center where that branch fell away. That became a central metaphor of my book, that I think all of us are shaped, our strength and our beauty, everything that people recognize about us. We're shaped as much by our suffering and our losses as by our achievements and successes. So I think the way that those things work together, even in children's lives, is important for me to recognize in them. So go ahead and put the first poem up. I'll read the first 3 poems. It's hard, I know most of you haven't read the book, so I don't want to do too many spoilers, but I thought if I begin by reading 3 of the poems, you'll see how I structured these diamond-shaped poems with the dark place in the middle where that's kind of a little hidden message that pops out of each one. 7 a.m., 20 below zero, ribbons of white and green and purple dancing in the blue-black sky. I'm up with Dad as usual, feeding our 6 dogs. I climb the ladder to the cache, toss 4 dried salmon out to Dad. He watches me as I back down. Be careful on that broken rung. I pack snow into the dog pot. Dad gets a good fire going in the oil drum stove. He loves these dogs like I do. We're both out here on weekends as much as we can be, and every day before and after school. He loves Roxy most. Willow, go get the pliers, he says, showing me a quill in Roxy's foot. It's surprising that a porcupine is out this time of year. I bring the pliers, Dad pulls out the quill, rubs in salve. Then we go from dog to dog, spreading fresh straw. Hey, Magoo. Hey, Samson. Roxy, you stay off that foot today. Dad pats Prince on the head. Lucky sniffs my hand. She smells salmon. I find a burr in Cora's ear and get it out. The snow melts into water, simmers in the cooking pot. I drop in the salmon, add some cornmeal. The dogs love that smell. They start to howl, and I howl back. So this is Willow explaining how she got her name. I was named after a stick. The way Mom tells it, she couldn't get Dad to agree on any names. Ellen after Grandma, Sally after Dad's great aunt in Michigan. No, he wanted something modern, something meaningful. It will come to us, Dad kept saying. Let's hope it comes before the baby learns to walk, said Mom. Always does, said Dad. That's how they argue. Each knows what they want, but neither seems to think it matters much who wins. Since Mom gives in before Dad most of the time, Dad gets his way a lot. He told me that just before I was born, he found a small stand of Diamond Willow and brought home 1 stick. That's it. Let's name our baby Diamond Willow. Mom had to think about it for a few days. I can see it now. They're on the airplane flying to Anchorage. Mom's in labor. She'll agree to almost anything. Okay, she says. So Dad puts Diamond Willow on my birth certificate, and then Mom says, we will call the baby Willow. And then the next poem. This, you can see on this side, I've put just a little example of the what the shape from the willow looks like, and on the left you see the actual stick there. I think in the middle, actually, that's the long straight stick. If my parents had called me Diamond, would I have been one of those sparkly kinds of girls? I'm not sparkly. I'm definitely not a precious diamond. You know, the kind of person everyone looks at the minute she steps into a room. I'm the exact opposite. I'm skinny, average height, brown hair, and ordinary eyes. Good. I don't want to sparkle like a jewel. I would much rather blend in than stick out. Also, I'm not one of those dog-obsessed kids who talk about nothing but racing in the junior Iditarod. I like being alone with my dogs on the trail. Just us, the trees, the snow, the stories I see in the animal tracks. No teachers, no parents, no sneak up on you boys. Thanks. So then I think, is the next one the letter? Yeah. This is a letter. I'm not going to read it out loud, but I wanted you to see this, a letter that I got from a student after I confess I must have bragged to his teacher who knew me, and she had her students reading Diamond Willow. And I love that. I'll read that one. I have a paragraph that I've written that incorporates that one sentence that's so special to me. If anyone doubts the importance of awards such as this one in bringing books and young readers together, consider the letter from PK asking, "Are you an actual poet? The reason I asked that question was because of the award that you got for the Lee Bennett Hopkins Poetry Award." We don't always hear the reasoning behind the questions children ask, but there it is. The award is a gift not only to the author, but to young readers who are just discovering what poetry can be and are willing to expand their definition with just a little encouragement from a voice of authority such as Lee Bennett Hopkins. And I might add, with the administrative work of Stephen Herb, Carolyn Wermuth, and the incredible amount of work of the judges, all of those things that bring children and poetry together. And I wanted to share one other thing that a young reader named Alex he said to me. He congratulated me in his letter for making a real book turn into a poem book. So apart from what that says about the question of reality, I just take great delight in that. That sense that I think what he means is a real book is something that has a story in it. And a poem book, who knows what that meant to him. I think maybe he saw the shape of the words on the page. Maybe he did hear the way that I'm so, I use my poetry toolkit is how I think of it. When I'm writing those diamond-shaped poems especially, I'm really focusing on each sound and letter, the shape of the language, the way it sounds in my ear, the images. It's all coming together, and it pleases me so much that children don't stop to say so much anymore. It doesn't rhyme. How can it be a poem? They see the poetry in that. I wanted to tell you a funny story, though. A friend of mine, when I shared this email that I got from this little boy, and a friend said, "Well, I hope that you can turn poem books back into real books," because she was afraid that you couldn't let me loose in a library or there would be nothing but poem books left in my wake. So that was funny. I wanted to talk about one other thing. It's the question of where do you get your ideas. In the course of writing this book, I had the idea to have the animal. It was so, just walking around in this imaginary landscape, I was so aware of the presence of the animals from living in Alaska for a few years. It's just, you're always seeing their tracks, or you see them flying, or you hear them, or you eat them. The animals are really a huge presence. And I was also, I think, was it Catherine who said, or someone was talking, several people I think this morning have spoken about the ancestors who have come before us and how how the people who have been before us protect us. It was the person who was talking about learning English. But in so many ways I was aware of those two things, of the presence of our ancestors in our life and the presence of animals in that landscape in Alaska. And then I don't know if I consciously remembered this. I think this is something that I remembered later when someone asked me where I got the idea to do this. I remembered that once when I was teaching in this little village, and we were going out into the community interviewing the elders. This was a tiny community, 25 people. There was one woman there who was either a grandmother or a great-grandmother of all my students. I only had between 5 and 10 students. So we were asking her about her childhood and something she remembered, and she only spoke Athabascan, and the children spoke mostly English, and I only spoke English. So her son was translating for us. And she was describing someone and something that had happened. Maybe I asked her a question, but she used the expression, "She was still gone." So I kind of looked at her son, who was, he translated what she said in those words, "She was still gone." And I looked at him kind of quizzically, and he said, "Oh, I should have translated that. She wasn't born yet. She hadn't been born yet." So I think through that kind of thing, just not long, deep conversations, but little interactions in language, I got that sense that people kind of come and go in life, and wherever else, whatever else is part of our life. So when I was writing Diamond Willow, then all those things came together, and interspersed with Willow's diamond poems, I have prose sections in the voices of the animals who are speaking as well as ancestors. Part of that also was that Jeannie from The Braid, my book that I wrote a couple of years back, I couldn't quite let her go, and I imagined Jeannie as having, you know, migrated across Canada, the United States, and into Alaska as a spruce hen. So if you look at the front cover of Diamond Willow very carefully, I can show you if you're interested, you'll see there is a little spruce hen right under the O in Willow. You'll see the beak of that little spruce hen, and that's Jeannie from The Braid, which was just a fun thing for me to know. It's not exactly a sequel, it's just a kind of connection or a relationship between the books. I could go on and talk a lot more, but I'm going to wind this up. I want to say, in the years since I left Toledo, it's often been my experience that birds and animals make their presence known in a particular way when our senses are sharpened by grief and love. It's a mystery that I acknowledge with gratitude and delight. In the presence of people who have passed on, if that presence finds expression in the protective presence of animals, and if that finds its way into my story, that is poetry at work, and I thank the Lee Bennett Hopkins Committee for recognizing it. I feel deeply privileged to inhabit that place of poetry with young readers and with all of you this morning. I thank you all so much. And I wanted to say about what Stephen was mentioning about the book signing. I often, when I sign other people's books, I like to have a copy of my own book for people to sign for me. So that will be what the book signing will be this morning, that I'll have a copy of Diamond Willow, my one copy. And I would invite you to come and sign my book. Maybe if you want to write something that you have, that part of the theme of Diamond Willow is a theme of sort of self-forgiveness and appreciating your own accomplishment. So if you want to write anything like that in my book, something that you feel good about yourself for, I'll give you a gold sticker. The sticker actually is to put on. I'm hoping that you will be able to get a copy of my book at some point, and you can put the sticker on the book yourself. But Stephen and Carolyn have provided the stickers, and we can do that. There's also, if you want me to sign a copy of your book, there will be a tablet at the table where you can sign your name and address, and we can send you a signed book plate for after you are able to get a copy of it. So I think that's all the logistics, and I hope that I have made my appreciation really understood, because it's so deep and heartfelt. Thank you so much.